In the small, quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, there stands a white, two-story house. To the passing eye, it looks ordinary, a home frozen in time. But inside those walls, the air is heavy. Heavy with something that refuses to die. Over a century ago, on a warm summer night in 1912, 8 souls were murdered here as they slept. No killer was ever found, and some say they never truly left. Visitors still claim to hear children laughing upstairs. Doors creak on their own. Shadows move even when no light flickers. And at the heart of it all lies a single question that has haunted this town for over 100 years. Who swung the axe in Villisca? In June of 1912, Villisca was the kind of town people called safe. Rows of wooden houses, quiet dirt roads, and friendly neighbors who knew one another by name. The scent of lilacs floated through the summer air. Church bells marked the hours. Life was simple, predictable, peaceful, until that peace was shattered by an axe. The Moore family, Josiah, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children were well known in town. Josiah ran a hardware store. Sarah organized church events. Their home was always filled with laughter, piano music, and the chatter of visiting friends. On June 9, 1912, the Moore family attended a Sunday night service at the local Presbyterian church. It was a special Children's Day program organized by Sarah Moore herself. Their 2 children, Herman and Catherine, had speaking parts. Also with them were 2 young girls, Lena and Ina Stillinger, who were friends of Catherine and had been invited for a sleepover afterward. By the time the service ended, the sun had set. The church emptied, laughter echoing across the darkening streets as families made their way home. The Moores and the Stillinger girls were last seen walking together, their lanterns flickering like tiny stars in the night.
The road to the Moore home was quiet, just a few blocks from the church. The rhythmic crunch of footsteps on gravel, the occasional bark of a distant dog, nothing seemed unusual. But somewhere in the dark, someone may have already been watching, waiting. No one would ever know exactly when the intruder entered the Moore house that night, before the family returned or after they had gone to bed. But once the lights went out, the horror began.
Midnight fell heavy over Villisca. Inside the house, all was still, the ticking of a clock, the slow breathing of those asleep. Then, silence deeper than silence. Somewhere, a door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside the children's room. One by one, the axe fell, silent, deliberate, merciless. First the parents, then the children, then the visiting Stillinger sisters. 8 lives ended in their sleep. No one screamed, no one escaped.
By morning, the house was unusually quiet. Neighbors noticed no one had stepped outside, no one fed the chickens, no sound of the children laughing or Sarah's morning chores. By 8 a.m., a concerned neighbor, Mary Peckham, knocked on the door. There was no answer. She called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, who arrived with a spare key. When Ross opened the door, the stench of death met him instantly. Curtains drawn, silence thick as dust, and in every bed, horror. Inside, Ross found the unimaginable. Bodies covered with sheets, blood splattered on walls and ceilings. Every mirror and reflective surface in the house had been covered with cloth, as if the killer didn't want to see what he'd done. The axe, Josiah's own, lay abandoned at the foot of the bed. When police arrived, they confirmed the unthinkable. All 8 had been slaughtered as they slept. Not one sign of struggle. No valuables stolen. No clear motive. Only brutality, cold and silent. News spread like wildfire through Villisca. The once peaceful town fell into chaos. Men armed themselves, women refused to sleep, children were sent away to relatives. Neighbors eyed one another with suspicion. No one trusted anyone anymore. The fear was so deep it seeped into the soil, into the walls of the Moore house, where it still lingers today.
Sheriff Hank Horton was one of the first officials to step inside the Moore residence. Even he, a man hardened by years on the job, turned pale. The sight was unbearable. 8 lives reduced to silence and blood. Every door was locked from the inside. The only sign of intrusion, a single broken window in the pantry, likely the killer's entry point. Horton ordered everyone out, but it was too late. Curious townsfolk had already entered, trampling footprints, touching everything, contaminating what could have been the only clues. In 1912, crime scene control was a foreign concept, and with it went the chance to ever truly know who did it. Inside the house, investigators pieced together fragments of a puzzle. The killer had covered the victims' faces with bedsheets and mirrors with clothing. A bowl of bloody water sat on a table, as if the murderer had calmly washed up before leaving. A slab of bacon lay beside the axe, as though left as some macabre token. Whoever the killer was, he had moved with patience, precision, and a kind of ritual calm that terrified even the bravest men of Villisca.
Rumors swept through Villisca faster than the summer wind. Some believed the killer was a drifter, a stranger hopping off the nearby train line. Others whispered darker things, that it was someone local, someone who knew the Moores well enough to enter their home unnoticed. In a town this small, the idea that the murderer could be among them tore the community apart.
Then came a name, Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who had attended the same church event as the Moore family. He was eccentric, nervous, and had left town by train early the morning after the murders. Witnesses claimed he asked strange questions about the crime before it was public knowledge. When questioned, the Reverend offered odd and inconsistent statements. Months later, he even confessed, then retracted his confession, claiming he was coerced. Despite a trial that fascinated the nation, no solid evidence tied him to the murders. Kelly was acquitted, and the case fell back into darkness.
Others insisted the murderer was a transient killer who roamed from town to town, striking at random. Around the same time, similar axe murders occurred across Kansas, Illinois, and Colorado, entire families slain in their sleep. The weapon, the style, the silence, all too familiar. Could it have been the same man? A faceless traveler riding freight trains, leaving blood and mystery behind him? No one could say for sure, but the possibility chilled every town from Iowa to the Great Plains.
As months turned into years, the Moore house sat empty. Locals avoided walking past after dark. They said you could still hear the soft creak of footsteps upstairs or a child's laugh that faded into a whisper. Some nights, the glow of a lantern could be seen moving through the empty rooms, though no one lived there anymore. Villisca tried to forget, but the house wouldn't let them.
A decade later, a curious reporter visited the house, hoping for a story. What he found instead was a silence so thick it felt alive. His lantern flickered, the floorboards groaned, and from the upstairs bedroom came a faint thud, as though someone had dropped something heavy. He fled before finishing his notes. In his published piece, one line stood out: "The Moore house is not empty. It is merely waiting." Through the 1930s and 40s, Families occasionally moved in, never lasting long. Children complained of cold hands touching their faces at night. Toys moved by themselves. Doors opened quietly on their own. One family claimed to hear faint crying from the attic at exactly 2 a.m., the believed time of the murders. Most who lived there simply packed up and left without explanation.
By the 1950s, the house was boarded up, abandoned to dust and decay. Weeds climbed the porch. Birds nested in the eaves. It became a landmark of fear, a place parents warned their children to stay away from. But curiosity always won. Teenagers dared each other to peek inside, swearing they saw faces staring back.
Despite renewed investigations and modern forensic theories, no one has ever been charged definitively for the Villisca murders. The Keys remains one of America's most haunting, unsolved crimes, a wound in history that never healed. And with every unanswered question, the darkness inside that house seems to deepen.
Today, the Villisca Axe Murder House stands as a chilling monument to the past. Tourists, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers step cautiously onto the creaking porch, aware they are entering a house soaked in tragedy. The floorboards groan beneath every footstep. Even in broad daylight, shadows seem to shift in the corners, as if the house is alive and watching. Some visitors report a sudden drop in temperature as they enter. Others feel the unmistakable sensation of unseen hands brushing past them. The air tastes metallic, heavy with sorrow and fear.
Ghost hunters armed with EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and digital recorders enter the house. They whisper nervously, conscious of every creak, every gust of wind that rattles the windows. As night falls, instruments spike mysteriously, capturing readings that defy explanation. One investigator swears he saw a child dart across a hallway, disappearing into thin air. Another hears the faint hum of a lullaby drifting from the nursery, though the room is empty and the windows closed.
Many visitors claim to have heard whispers, soft, indistinct, yet chilling. Some say it's the Moors speaking, warning, pleading, or simply replaying their last moments. Others insist the Stillinger sisters' laughter echoes in the attic. Doors slam on their own. Steps climb the staircase when no one is there. These are not ordinary creaks of an old house. These are echoes of 8 lives violently stolen, repeating themselves endlessly, haunting anyone who dares to enter.
Visitors report objects moving by themselves, chairs rocking slowly, doors opening without touch, and personal belongings being nudged across the floor. Cameras often capture unexplainable motions. A doll turns its head. A cup slides across the table. Skeptics claim trickery, but the consistency of reports is staggering. One overnight guest awoke to find a rocking chair spinning violently, though the room was empty. The air carried a faint metallic tang and the unmistakable stench of decay, a reminder of the horrors that occurred over a century ago.
Many who ventured through the house report sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that grip the bones, accompanied by an unshakable feeling of being watched. Shadow figures dart just beyond peripheral vision. Cameras often pick up orbs of light floating through rooms, though no explanation is possible. Some swear they have felt themselves lifted slightly, brushed by invisible hands, or even pushed away from certain rooms. Fear isn't imagined here. It is physical, almost tangible, pressing against the chest of anyone who enters.
Some paranormal teams choose to spend the entire night inside. Armed with cameras and recorders, they report hours of strange noises, soft tapping on walls,
Distant crying, whispers calling names. One team described a sudden loud bang upstairs, with no one moving, followed by a door slowly creaking open on its own. By morning, investigators leave shaken, recording dozens of unexplained phenomena. Each night spent in the house seems to deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. The house is more than wood and nails. It is a vessel of memory, a monument to innocence destroyed. Locals say the spirits of the Moore family and their guests remain trapped, repeating their final night endlessly. Visitors sometimes catch glimpses of the Moores in period clothing, peering out of windows or sitting silently in their beds. It is a place where history refuses to stay buried, where tragedy is etched into the very walls. And it is a warning: some evils, once committed, never truly leave.
"I felt cold hands on my shoulders," one visitor recounts. "I heard children laughing upstairs, but no one was there." Others speak of fleeting shadows, of voices whispering their names, and of objects moving of their own accord. These accounts have turned the Moore home into a destination for those chasing the paranormal. But curiosity comes at a price. The house does not forget, and the spirits within do not forgive.
Over 100 years have passed since that terrible night in 1912. The Villisca Axe Murder House remains a place of dark fascination. Some leave offerings to appease restless spirits. Others try to debunk the stories, only to leave with their own experiences etched into memory. And every year, new visitors arrive, drawn by the whispers, the shadows, and the promise that if they are brave enough, they might catch a glimpse of the Moore family, forever trapped in their last night.
Despite decades of investigation, the murders of Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and the Stillinger sisters remain unsolved. Police at the time interviewed dozens of neighbors, examined countless theories, and pursued numerous suspects, but no one was ever convicted. Some historians speculate it was a transient killer, moving from town to town. Others insist it was someone close to the family, driven by motives we will never know. The truth remains hidden behind the walls of that house, as impenetrable as the night itself.
Today, the Moore House is a museum of fear. Guided tours bring visitors inside its rooms, where history and horror intertwine. The walls are preserved as they were, a frozen snapshot of violence. The bedrooms, still neatly made, contrast sharply with the memories of what occurred there. Some claim they feel a presence in every room, a lingering grief, or perhaps something darker, waiting silently for those who dare to intrude.
Ghost hunters and visitors report EVP recordings capturing faint voices, children calling out, whispers of "Mama" or "Papa," and unexplained footsteps. Cameras often show shadowy figures moving where no one stands. The house seems alive, replaying its tragedy night after night. Whether these phenomena are supernatural or psychological, one thing is clear: the house has never forgotten the horrors committed within.
The town of Villisca itself carries the memory of that night. Generations have passed, yet locals speak of it in hushed tones. Parents warn children to respect the house, even if they don't believe in ghosts. The story has become woven into the very fabric of the community. It is a reminder that some tragedies cannot be solved, and some evils cannot be forgotten.
Over a century later, the Moore family and the Stillinger sisters' spirits are said to linger. Guests report doors slamming,
objects moving, and footsteps echoing through empty hallways. Children whisper in rooms long abandoned. Some claim to see full apparitions watching from windows or shadows gliding silently through the halls. The house is no longer just a building. It is a monument to fear, grief, and unanswered questions, and it serves as a warning. Some violence leaves a permanent mark, not only on the victims, but on the very space where it occurred.
The Villisca Axe Murders remind us that history is never truly silent. 8 innocent lives were taken in a single night, leaving behind more questions than answers. The house still stands, preserved and feared, a testament to horror, loss, and the mysteries that refuse to die. As the sun sets and the shadows lengthen across Villisca, one cannot help but feel the weight of the past pressing down, reminding us that some doors, once opened, can never be closed.
The Moore house waits, silent, patient, watching. It is a house built on tragedy, held together by memory and sorrow, where every creak, whisper, and shadow tells the story of a night that can never be forgotten. And so, the Villisca Axe Murder House remains not just a haunted house, but a living reminder that some mysteries are eternal and some evil never truly dies.